Take two. Kyle here from All Media Reviews. Here to do a video blog. I haven't done one of these in a few weeks. Um, there's one big thing to talk about, but a few other things. So I'll get all the small things out of the way. I think there's some news, some stuff, stuff that's been announced to come out. New albums coming out next year, Archive, and there's another one coming in February. But um, Well, I got Joyce's rings, of course, here. I got this chain, and at the Min Animate Festival, that was my last video, maybe one of my last videos. Um, I lost the little bag for it when I went back to TJ Maxx tonight, and they gave me one of these. This was a few weeks ago that I lost it. Felt bag, kind of like when women would have rings and stuff. Like even one of these rings. I think the engagement one, this one, you can see had a box. I think may still be upstairs, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it sucked. I mean, I didn't lose the chain, I didn't lose the rings. Of course, it was more important, but it's losing the bag. I left it at main cinema somehow, or I don't know where I lost it. Somewhere walking between the two, but they gave this to me. This nice girl named Amanda at TJ Maxx in Egan tonight. So and I did buy another one of these. We call these things again. Um, faux fur throw. They're blankets. This one's Hello Kitty that Joyce would like. It's pumpkin base, but I'll probably use it year round. But I have to get all these tags, these darn tags. There's like probably 10 or 15 of them. I don't need my kitty over there getting his mouth on them. So it'll take some time because the other one that I bought, the Snoopy one, the penis one, did. I've been reading, I went to the library, but I've been reading Comfort by Anne Hood. Of course, I have neighbors that are being loud. Um, it's Anne Hood's an author that's written fiction, I guess, but this is about the loss of her daughter. Unfortunately, she was 5, but yeah, it reads. I mean, it's reads very narrative. It's creative nonfiction, as I'm learning more about that term, but I need to go back to it, but it's so far it's pretty dark in the first 2 chapters. So then I was recommended this from someone, this person I've been talking to who works at Barnes and Noble. This book by another author who did fiction, I guess, but this is a nonfiction book, kind of creative nonfiction. It's award winning, I guess. Came out like 21 years ago. The Year of Magical Thinking from Joan Didion. I got this from the library, so I might eventually buy this, and it's about the loss of her husband and her daughter, and I think that's the two of them there with her, but very sudden how he passed away. But this really reads well because her writing just flows well, even though again the subject matter, and the writing is not a very pleasant, uplifting subject, but she gets over I guess over experience of like my aunt's book, except it's only 1 year. My aunt's book, After Effects of Grief, but her experience with grief. It talks about what grief can do to you and everything. So, and then maybe I did show this, maybe I didn't. I got this a couple weeks ago. Finally, I got this when I got Comfort. So, God, it seems like I've had Comfort for longer than that, but I haven't. Spectators, the Brian K. Vaughan graphic novel that I was getting emails, and I wasn't on the Patreon, so I was getting the full thing, but I was getting just excerpts of this for a better part of like a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. It was like 2024, 2023, I think. It might have even been 2022. At least a couple of years. And well, I'm a Brian K. Vaughan fanboy. I read like not half of it, but I read like more than a third of it just tonight because it's graphic novel, so it's obviously drawings and stuff. The premise is, I mean, it has social commentary, it has a lot of sexual, like, a lot of nudity and graphic, artwork, of course, graphic novel, um, but the premise is that this woman dies, and then she's basically like not a ghost exactly. Her spirit is still around watching the rest of humanity, and she can float around in space, and she meets others. These are spectators watching humanity, and it goes through different time frames. Some of it's set. I read something that said it was set like 100 years in the future at points. I don't know if that's fully accurate. I thought maybe it'd be like 20 or 30 years, maybe 40, because parts of it are during COVID. He was working on this during COVID, the premise and obviously the writing and creating the artwork with this Nico Henrikin, who I think did the Baghdad whatever the Baghdad story that he wrote. That was probably like 20 years ago almost. Um, Narrative with the lions and stuff like that, and the lions and tigers, I think. Like Battle over Baghdad, or War over Baghdad, I forget the name of it. Um, it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty damn good. I mean, the premise is very interesting. The commentary, pop culture references and stuff. So, I mean, again, I have my fanboy bias, but I didn't want to read too much of it because um, I don't want to like end it. I'm pretty sure though, given how much I read and what's happened so far and what I've read. I mean, I got the emails which had little bits. I don't know how much of that. Some might not even be in here. The more of what I'm saying is I hope that it ends up being like this isn't the only part of it. Like I hope it ends up being a series, just like Saga or all the other ones, Why the Last Man, Ex Machina, Paper Girls was too. And reading this makes me want to actually dive into Paper Girls finally because I read a little bit of it, and then I watched the limited series that only lasted one season, with Ali Wong and a bunch of other people, but that was on like Hulu. But yeah, I mean, I guess when I finish it, I'll give more detail, maybe some spoilers in some ways. I mean, I'm kind of already given the premise, but like the girl, what's her name again? Cal, or I forget her name, and she meets like a cowboy. They're both again been around, deceased, that kind of thing. So, um, but there's like some actually living characters too. But I mean, the premise at the beginning, she's still alive, of course, but then she passed away. That's not spoiling too much, but um, there's it's a for various reasons. Obviously, what I've been going through with the loss of my wife, it made me think about things, ghosts. I mean, stuff like Dead Like Me, and but they're reapers, and they're actually grim reapers, and they're actually in the living world in a sense from physical, like three-dimensional form. Um, like purgatory kind of thing, but you're not dead. Yeah, I mean, not quite. Your spirit, is it a ghost? Are they really ghosts? I know there's one point they say one of the characters say, "Well, you can go and move on if you want, but if you want to watch humanity, different people in humanity, it's sort of yeah, taking the premise of what's happened the last 10 years. I mean, COVID probably inspired this a lot. They talk about COVID in here a little bit, and then what happened with like social and political things, of course, with Trump. Trump's reference in here, but it's set many at points decades in the future, so humanity can destroy itself. Reminded me a little bit of what they did with Westworld too, because Westworld, the TV series, the revival, at points was set, how many decades in the future from now, but yeah, I mean, I have a bad feeling, and I'm gonna like start reading it again, and I'll just finish it, or I'll finish it within a couple times. So I'll be done with this. I potentially could be done with this pretty easily, pretty quick. Who knows? To kind of try to pace myself. So I did go to the Loon soccer game last Saturday night, which is good. I had a friend of Joyce's had tickets. They couldn't make it. And the tickets were in the second row at the very end, not in the middle of the field, but like on the end, behind one of the goals. And the Loons are the Major League Soccer league. Obviously, they played Kansas City. It's not Premier League. It's not European or South American of that level, but still professional soccer. And it was neat to see. I played when I was in high school. Um, I would go again as much as the weather was like going to be hot, but it turned out because it was really breezy, it was like pretty ideal weather. It's like 75 and breezy, or and actually I saved money on parking. They wanted $32 for parking right near the stadium, Allianz Field. Um, but you just go back further and I end up paying half of that. So, yeah, because it's been a while since I've done a review. Imogen Heap's coming out with a new song on Friday. Um, Josh Rouse is going to be a realtor. I don't know what my wife would think about that. Joyce's reaction to that. Um, I mean, I didn't get to Renaissance Festival this year. Kind of relate to what I'm about to talk about. I didn't. I did go to the Nami walk, and I did some other things. I went to this healing prayer at the synagogue, but I didn't do any of the high holiday stuff because my cat Mocha was sick, and my cat Mocha isn't here anymore. So along with what I found out, on Monday, last Friday, a couple besides Mocha, one of my coworkers, not on my own personal team, but passed away too. And then actually one of my team members had a grandkid pass away. So I don't know. But Mocha specifically. So I can tell the story about everything with Mocha and tell the story how she got sick. Um, I guess why don't I tell the story about Mocha before I go into all the more difficult details. Um, so there's a video I did back in May of 2022, um, talking about Latte, the cat that Joyce and I took in as like a indoor outdoor cat or outdoor indoor cat. Latte got feline leukemia and was put down. We had to put him. He ended up contracting another form of cancer besides the feline leukemia. He never shed it, but we didn't we had him tested. We thought he might because some cats can shed it, like adult cats, I guess. But which was really tough. Joyce and I were not cat people. We had Coco and we had Alfie before then. Joyce had other dogs before that, Lori and Boots, and I had a dog Daisy growing up, and my grandmother had a few dogs, Sandy and Taffy. Um, we're dog people, and when we bought this townhouse in 2019, we weren't living with Coco. Coco was not young. Coco had to have a pyometra and had Cushing's, but she was still around. She was starting to struggle at that point, but still around. But she stayed with her mom, not that far from here, a few miles from here. But Joyce always said that we broke Coco's heart by moving. Coco did stay with us several times, and that's how we met Latte. We had seen Latte before that, whatever. But anyway, that was a tough one to take because Coco was put down in October 2020, but we still had Latte at the time, and but then just literally whatever it was, a year and a half later, Latte, succumbed to the leukemia. I mean, Latte never gained weight, but that was May of 2022. We went to a cat cafe after that. That was hard just because of how young Latte was. I mean, Cystodon's going outside, but we were like, well, we could adopt a dog. We could have, I suppose. The question had to be posed, but we sort of became converted cat people in some sense after taking care of Latte. And what really was sort of we stumbled on. We've been looking at in the cat cafe. We've been looking at cats at the PetSmarts, with Latte, or we just see them. And we went there a few times after Latte was put down. Um, but there's this place in South St. Paul called Pounce and Fetch. We drove by when we were looking at a house, and then we went to go get Dairy Queen or something. Because there's a Dairy Queen there we like. That was June of 2022. And there's all these cats in this small space, and they were all rescues. They weren't in the best shape though. They were clamoring. It's like small space, like 30 cats. So we went back and we said, okay, we're gonna adopt one of these cats. And Mocha, or Megan as she was known then, this little cat that was sitting in the corner, kind of looked a little bit like Latte. It was white with, brown, whatever highlights, or brown, right, black rather, a black other parts of her fur. And so we did adopt her, but we didn't get papers for her. We didn't know how old exactly. They told us that Megan was raised on a farm originally and had kittens, but the kittens were taken away from her. But they never gave us the papers. Megan ended up drooling and defecating in the car. She was not a happy camper from the get go in the car. I remember that Joyce was having a panic attack too, and I was trying to blast the music so I wouldn't have to hear Joyce freak out and then deal with Mocha and the smell and stuff like that. Anyway, that was I always remember that, but yeah, so Mocha we had, and then we had just adopted the day before our other cat, Kaja, was right over there. We've seen it more on camera than Mocha. Um, we got Kaja from the Burnsville PetSmart, and Kaja was just 9 months. Kaja was known as Zane, and of course Mocha was named as Megan, but we changed him to Mocha and Kaja. Kaja was from Kaja Gugu. Mocha was the name. Latte, Coco. Joyce didn't like coffee, but she was destined to like name her next pet, one of her next pets, especially if it's a female. She always mostly had females, she said, but Kaja was a little bit of an exception. Latte too, because Latte looked like a female, but we adopted them both, and they did bond to some degree, but never fully. But that was in late June, early July of 2022. It was late June. Um, and they managed. Mocha had some health issues. She had high blood pressure, and she had kidney disease or some kidney issues, but it wasn't severe according to the vet. Um, but but Mocha always was begging for food. Like my work day, she'd be coming down every hour and a half, 2 hours or less. And she also didn't seem to, during the day at least, sleep for long stretches of time. And anytime we'd be making food or she smelled anything, she had an alarm, like a radar for any food, especially people food or human food. So she frequently was begging like a dog. She was a lot like our dog Coco in that sense. Um, but she also wouldn't like eat large portions. She just always wanted smaller portions, and she'd clean herself. But she had some other health issues in that, like one obviously with is probably the anxiety, the stress, and the blood pressure. Whenever I'd take her to the vet, she would defecate. Like every time in the carrier, she hated the carrier that we had for her. But we never could quite figure that out. She also puked regularly. Like, I guess a lot of cats do that, but it was probably largely to do with her eating too much too fast. It would usually be in the morning, but she could go weeks without doing it, but then she'd do it 3 times in a week. It was frustrating to have to clean it up regularly. It's like I'm like half awake, but I just we kind of accepted it. We were giving her I was giving her this transdermal cream for her and Lodipine for her blood pressure. I don't know how much that helped and if it affected like reduced her amount of throwing up or whatever, but um I was just kind of over the last say like year and a half trying to give her smaller portions at a time. Problem with the two cats, they would share bowls or be eating from each other's bowls. So whatever I gave her, Kaja would want. And although Kaja has never taken much to people food the way she is, I don't know at some point he will. But so I guess the other one health issue that came up with her was it was a little over like 8 months ago. It was like last February, March. She was sneezing a fair amount, and it was some kind of upper respiratory thing. But the vet said that it might have had to do with the litter that we were using. I was trying to use different litter, so I got the respiratory litter, which has reduced dust. I think helped because I didn't notice that for a while, but it's a little more money. But she was still a good kitty. She was still behaving for the most part normally, other than that, after that cleared up. I mean, she was an older cat. Again, we didn't know how old she is, but we estimated she was born sometime in like 2015 because she was supposedly there was a picture of a cat looks like her in 2017 at that um the shelter in South St. Paul. So that would make her about 10 or 10 and a half, around now. Um, but she was managing, and even through the time Joyce was sick, she was still like when Joyce got COVID, she would stay with Joyce, and she stayed with Joyce the whole time. And she was like she was a more seasoned cat than my other cat who was 9 months when we got him. Now he's 4. 4, yeah. Um, Kaja, but and she really knew what she needed, but she also hid her health. She would hide underneath the bed, sometimes from him, sometimes just to hide underneath the bed. But after Joyce passed away, I took her and Kaja to the vet, and they did some blood work, and they got back to us like a week later saying that her kidney values had gone up. They had gone up a year before, but we really needed to change her diet. So we did. We just gradually did started getting this kidney food, this Maruva and Royal Canes. Um, and we were just I didn't give it to her right away. I kind of had to slowly, gradually give it to her. But so I got the sense eventually, and like her kidney values had gone down a few weeks ago. But a few weeks ago, she threw up like 3 times one day, and the next day she was just hiding under the bed. So I ended up taking her to the vet the next day, and the day after I had an appointment already. So she went to the vet twice. Um, and they said that her kidney values had gone down a little bit. They were still high, but they think it was having to do with the kidney, the throwing up. We had to stick to the diet and just be like, well, maybe she ate some bad food or something. But and that because I left out some wet food for I don't know 8 hours or something like that. Maybe not even that much. I don't know. Um, I mean, her appetite was coming back. Her behavior was getting to be, for the most part, normal. She was even playing a little bit, using the scratching post. But little did I know at that point, what probably happened was she had developed some form of pneumonia in her lungs. But she wasn't really showing it. Although she was sniffling. That was the thing after she ate, so that might have been a sign. But she was not like she was seemingly normal, like eating for the most part. And so I was actually going to bring her to the vet the week after that, and I didn't. I went to the synagogue for Rosh Hashanah that morning. I could have done that, but I don't know if it would have made much of a difference. But so then the following Saturday night when I got home, we had a dinner. We had this anniversary dinner for Joyce and I with half the wedding party, like 2/3 of it at Burger Mo's and stuff. That Saturday that had been gone at the Nami Walk and some other things. She was breathing pretty heavily, and it was very much of a flashback of what happened to Latte. When Latte toward the end was breathing heavily, his heart pulse was racing and something. So I brought her in the ER because I didn't know what else to what. I went to bed and I gave her some of the transdermal blood pressure medication, thinking it would help. Man, didn't really. She did have some of this, like the lickable stuff, which has no calories, but it's for hydration and it's flavor. The kidney version of it. But I did bring her to the at 4 o'clock in the morning, like 4:30, whenever, because I didn't know what else to do. They gave her fluids and they gave her oxygen, and they concluded that it was some form of pneumonia that got in her lungs. And I guess, it's not like super uncommon for cats to get that at some point, depending on what happened. She could have got it from that wet food. She could have got it when she was in the vet for like 8 hours. Who knows? But they did some X-rays and also noticed that she had a heart murmur and she had some form of heart disease, and that her one kidney was very large compared to her other one, so it was having to work more. But she, after a day and a half in the ER/animal hospital in St. Paul, she was breathing relatively well. That I could bring her home, and then I was supposed to give her antibiotics and this gabapentin orally through a syringe, which wasn't easy. But I figured if she bounces back, it was not. Of course, any vet bills, especially ER animal hospital bills, is a lot. I managed to do that. I'm gonna be paying that off for a while probably, but I wanted to give her a shot. They said, given her condition, and all these other health conditions, that her prognosis wasn't ideal, but they said, there's a chance that she would, if the with taking the antibiotics and just regular maintenance, like monitoring her, she could bounce back. And she wasn't, she's not like a young cat, but she's not, you know, of the age where something like this would just take her right away. So, and the first couple days when she was home last week, she did fairly well. I mean, she wasn't perfect, but she was sort of back and forth where she would eat some. I was giving her this appetite stimulator, this Mirataz, which helped, which I gave her a few weeks before that. They gave it to me at the vet. Um, and then I didn't give her the gabapentin 3 times a day like they recommend. I only gave it twice because it was much. It was once in the morning, um, then once before bed, and then I gave her the antibiotic in the late afternoon with food. She had to have food within 2 hours of it. It could be 2 hours after, 2 hours before, but I managed to do that for the most part. She was not crazy about that. I had to wrap her in a towel and stuff like that, but I did manage to do it, I believe, for a few days. But and her breathing would kind of be okay, and then it would be heavy when she tried to eat. She tried to use the litter and even climb up and down the stairs. I was trying to carry her, kind of like a little bit like Joyce. When Joyce, toward the end, before she went into the hospital, she was trying to go up the stairs, and she had to really just pace herself, and it wasn't easy. But Mocha, of course, was is 7, 8 pounds. It's easier to carry. So, but then on I don't know if it would have been, you'd say it was on Wednesday night. I didn't go anywhere Wednesday night. I watched the Kol Nidre services online. And Thursday was Yom Kippur itself. I didn't go to services. I watched the Yizkur the Yizkur services were for healing for loss also, and then the service later. But then, Mocha seemed to be kind of status quo. She had been eating earlier, so I decided to go to dinner at my brother and sister-in-law's, and I came back. And I thought she still ate a little bit, but she was under the bed a lot. And then toward I was getting ready for bed and gonna give her the gabapentin and everything like that, because I'd given her the antibiotic earlier, um, and she was breathing heavily, and I gave her the gabapentin kind of. Make sure I missed it. She was in the record room actually. Then she went missing. It was weird. I swear, like she vanished into thin air. It doesn't sound like something I would be serious, but like I looked everywhere for her after I was doing some of my stuff, taking insulins before I go to bed. And then she came like back. I was like trying to get her attention. Went downstairs. Went around looking throughout the whole house in the corners of the record room, our bedroom, all this stuff. And I came back there, and then she was right where she was. It was really bizarre. That's why I gave it to her. But then, literally after I gave her the medication, she walked out of the record room and into our bedroom under the bed, and was like, and I was like, what am I supposed to do here? Bring her back to the ER at that point. My feeling was if she had another episode or was severe, I wouldn't have thought about it. It was it. Um, but I said, well, I gave her the medication. Let's see how she's doing in the morning. I woke up at like 4:30 and checked on her, and she was gone. So, you know, I I don't think it was purely to do with the pneumonia. I think the pneumonia obviously was kind of triggered some of it, but I think it was her heart. I think she was fighting, and then she just kind of gave through in the towel after having to give that medication 3 times a day. The medic through the syringe and stuff was a struggle. Struggle to use the litter. I mean, she could do it, but then it was pressing her, like pushing her, and to eat even though I had lunch on Thursday. We're not supposed to eat, but for medication purposes, I take medication. I have to have it with food. So I had a sandwich, and she was begging for it. Um, she was fighting, but no, she's at peace now. She's with Joyce, but I don't know. I don't. I mean, she had health issues. She was probably more sick than I realized. The pneumonia sort of maybe just brought some of that stuff out. Our vet never really detected any really issues with her heart, like a heart murmur. Um, I mean, some cats are really good at masking how they are because she play with a laser pointer and you know coming up and down. She would sit next to me and doing normal stuff for the most part. After Joyce passed away and even before. I mean, she couldn't mask the sniffling, but playing with her brother, even though half the time her brother wanted to kill her and she wasn't interested. She tried to hide from him. She hadn't gone up in the raft. I guess that's one thing. We have these rafters down in the basement, and she hadn't gone into the rafters in, I don't know, many weeks, if not months. Kaja did. Like when Kaja started, like before that. So I would say maybe a little bit after Joyce passed away in August. Maybe the last time she had gone up there that I remember. But because she used to do that semi regularly, partly to hide from him and partly just to explore, which I always worried about that. They get stuck or something, get lost in there and be meowing. But she wasn't a very verbal cat. That's the thing. Kaja's way more verbal, but we gave her, a better life for 3 years, 3 months. A little bit like Latte, but probably even better than Latte in some ways. We saved her, She could have conceivably lived, you know, 3, 4, 5 more years potentially, maybe even more than that. Some cats live into their late teens or 20s. But so it's just Kaja and me. It's just the two of us now. What was a family of four, or even when Joyce's mom was over here, five in some at points, residing in this townhouse of mine, is now down to just the two of us. It is a bit of a relief because the last few weeks of Mocha's life was kind of stressful. I skipped I didn't go to the Stephen Wilson concert because Mocha's health. I was concerned about her that night. I missed a walk at the art part or at the I was gonna do a destination walk, and I didn't do it one night because of how she was doing. But I gave her a shot, and it's a little bit like Joyce. She kind of came home after going into the ER. It was a similar. It wasn't hospice exactly, but Joyce came home because she didn't want to end her life in the hospital, and she didn't want to go to a facility. You could say the same in some ways. Mocha got to come home at least and spend. And she had a couple days where she was doing better, um, but I already miss her. Um, I always remember I'm gonna get the urn, get her paw print. I'll show that maybe. But in some sense, it's a relief. She's at peace, and as far as my life and trying to do things, trying to outside of this house, this townhouse of mine, not worrying about my sick kitty is a relief. It's helping me in some ways, but it's still not. I mean, I would take her back in a heartbeat still. I wish she was here. I wish obviously Joyce was still here. But will I get another cat at some point? Maybe, but it probably won't. It won't be anytime soon. Maybe next year. I mean, we said the same thing after we lost Latte, Joyce and I, but Joyce had more withdrawal. I mean, owning a pet is a big responsibility. It's a time-consuming thing. It's emotionally draining, and it's financially a bit taxing at points. Even cats. Dogs are more money than cats generally, and they live shorter lives. But it's just going to be Kaja and me for a while now, and I'm able to now go do this stuff. Go to Barnes and Noble, go to the library, the Egan Library, or other libraries. I'm going to go to the Jewish Community Center tomorrow, I think. Go to play trivia, etc. The restaurants. I'm still conscious of Kaja being by himself here, but he's a trooper, and Cat's got pretty independent. Even though he's only 4, he's starting to hiss. It's weird. He never hissed around until the last couple of weeks. He finally learned how to do that. It's weird. He's like he's grown up almost. Like Mocha taught him a bunch of things, a little bit how Joyce taught me some stuff, but I don't know. I want this to end, all this loss and everything. Why suddenly all this stuff? I mean, it happens. You lose family members periodically, but it's enough. I need to heal. I need to get better. These books are helping. Meeting some of these people, doing some of this stuff. I'm trying to get back to sort of things I love. I'm still struggling with music somewhat, but to do all that stuff I talked about, you know, um, and the reading thing is my new addiction, I guess. It's kind of a nice, silver lining, I guess, in some ways going through this. Um, but I don't know. I miss Mocha. You know, one cat versus two is easier to take care of, but we've had mice here before, and I'm gonna have to call an exterminator soon and worry about that. And just getting just everything in the grief process for Joyce is still in progress. Trying to do everything this fall. Shane is going to be coming here, her friend from Wisconsin that's in the monkeys. Um, and yeah, there's some other stuff. I want to go to the apple orchard. I want to go back to the arboretum. I want to go to the Jack o' Lantern Festival at the Minnesota Zoo. Tour. The art park is only open in Eagan, the Caponi Art Park. Probably going to do that hopefully next week um, with someone. And there's just a lot of stuff I want to try to still do, but I got to manage all this stuff in the process. So, um, but I just, I don't, I'm potentially going to be on jury duty. I'm not sure what else. There's all this stuff that I have to worry about, and all the stuff that's here, all the things that Joyce still have, and even Mocha to some degree. It's weird now going to the pet store, not shopping for Mocha. I have all this cat food that we bought for her. Some of it I might be able to give to donate, but I'm gonna miss Mocha. She was a little kitty. She was, a pretty little kitty, and I mean, everyone loved her. Even though she shed and she begged frequently, and she was a little scoundrel of trying to get as much food, people food, or anything food. She'd jump on top of the oven, on top of the stove rather, and even on the island a few times. You want to come up here, Kaja? Here. Yeah, you miss your sister too, don't you? I don't know if it's eventually going to affect him in some way. Hopefully not too severely, but at some point you might have a sibling again, little kitty. But for now, it's just you and me, kid. It's hard to really face. Like 6 months ago, it was the four of us. We were together for whatever it was, almost 3 years. The four of us with Joyce and myself and the two kitties. But that's what happens. It's like questioning reality. It's like spectators. It's like become ghosts. I will admit that I shot some footage at the cemetery. I want to bring him to the cemetery and bring Mocha's ashes. It's Latte's ashes and Coco's ashes are buried with Joyce. But going to the cemetery is really helpful. I feel like very at peace there. I don't feel like I spend enough time there. I can just sit there and just talk to her. But um, when the weather gets colder, it's going to be a little harder to do that. It's hard to figure out time. I do it like once a week on Sundays. And I didn't even talk about our anniversary. I went to St. Paul Hotel and Cheapo, and I did go to the cemetery and brought roses and stuff. Are you claiming this to be your girlfriend? Like Latte with that study pillow, Kaja. He's licking my blanket, the Hello Kitty blanket. Like Mocha had a fixation for blankets. Like Joyce would fold them, I would fold them. Joyce did it more than me, but I did it. And then Mocha would just go up there and sit and like, this is my little spot. The two of them battled. I mean, it's like it was a constant battle. I mean, the two of them were sort of rival siblings. And he was younger, he was older, but he was bigger because he's a boy and she's a girl. But yeah, like he liked the cardboard box to sit in than she would, or the window over there. He loved it. When he would leave the window, Mocha would jump on the window. There was only room for one of the cats on the window, so they always sort of like were like kind of taking after the other by certain spaces to claim. Like they wanted to claim ownership. But now it's just you. A lot of times you get to basically take care of the home because I need to go places because um being here all day. It's not that different being home with the cats when Joyce was gone because that was my normal thing anyway. And I guess in some ways it's with just one cat in some ways because one of them would be sleeping. Usually it would be him and she would be up, but vice versa. But I don't know. I don't know how long it'll be before I think about getting another cat. But it's more money, two cats versus one, and it's more work. But he'd have a playmate. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think long and hard about this, but we went to the pet store tonight and I saw some kitties, but they were kittens, most of them. But there was like a party and disco and party with two of the cats' names. That like these are just like temporary names, just like Megan and Zane, because his name was Zane and hers was Megan. So, but yeah, rest in peace, my little kitty Mocha. She's in heaven. She's meeting her siblings Latte and Coco and Alfie and hanging out with her mom now. But hopefully it's gonna be you and me for a long time here, Kaja. He's only 4. He just turned 4 in August, so conceivably we can do a little bit better with his health because Mocha's health was probably impacted largely based on where she um in that shelter for 4 or 5 years or whatever it was. That had a lot to do with it. All those cats, a lot of the dander and sharing bowls and stuff, and I'm guessing a lot of her blood pressure and even maybe her kidneys issues started even then. I don't know. They didn't like emphasize her, and she was having regular bowel movements and peeing, but whether the health issues she had were started there, or obviously we fed her certain food that probably we shouldn't have. We probably shouldn't have been giving her so much of the different like cheaper cat food, but she liked it. She ate it, and it wasn't really regimented. I wish I had, but he sticks to only a couple foods. But I'm gonna have to talk to the vet more about the treats especially, and I don't know. Mocha loved the pates with the mousse, but it was high in sodium, so that contributed. But so anyway, and I don't know when I'll do another one of these. Hopefully sooner than later. Maybe I'll do one when I get her urn and stuff like that. And then when I finish this, I'm gonna finish this probably. Won't take me that long because it's like reading, like watching a movie and stuff. But thank you for watching though, and we'll see you next time.